God bless you and God keep you on this Thursday afternoon. We're grateful for another opportunity to come with another moment for Pastor Brown. We pray you like, comment, and share this as well. I want to look at Genesis 18, verse 14, just the start of it. And it says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And we know in Genesis 18, it talks about Abraham and Sarah, and we know about their old age. We know that Abraham is 100, Sarah is 90, and God tells Abraham that they're going to have a child. Sarah laughs at God. She laughed at God. And then she was trying to be all smooth and try to cover up like she didn't laugh, but she did laugh. And then we know in Genesis 21, God makes that the promise that God made in Genesis 18 is fulfilled in Genesis chapter 21 with the birth of Isaac. But even though they're in their old age, God still blesses them with a child, which is an encouragement to us, I believe, on today. Is there anything too hard for God? No. But sometimes we have to understand, we have to stop making life hard on us. We make life hard on us sometimes when we refuse to trust God completely, when there's still some things we try to do ourselves, when there's still some things we try to have it our way, we try to make it this way, we try to make it that way. Sometimes we make it hard on us because we're not fully devoting and fully giving everything to God. Listen, you cannot try to make things happen the way you want them to happen. You have to let God do what God is going to do. You have to let God be who God is going to be. There's nothing too hard for God, but we can't make things hard on us because of our refusal to trust God with everything. You got to ask yourself, do I trust God with everything? Do I believe in God enough to understand, realize, and know that in everything God is going to see me through it, in everything God is going to guide me? But is there anything too hard for God? There can never be anything too hard for God because God is the creator of everything. God knows everything. There's nothing that God can't do, and there's nothing that God doesn't know, and there's nothing that can get out of place because God has it all under control. Am I right? Don't forget that. God has it under control, and God has whatever you need, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're facing, it is under control because God has not forgotten. God is still there. God is still keeping you. So is there anything too hard for God? The answer should be automatically no. There's nothing too hard for God. There's nothing that makes God frantic or makes God puzzled. Now, it's some stuff that can make us flip out. It's some stuff that can make us trip. It's some stuff that can make us, go bonkers, if you will. But there's nothing that God cannot handle. And not only is there nothing God cannot handle, there's nothing that is more influential, powerful, and stronger than God. We need to remember that nothing is stronger than God. Whatever you're facing today, whatever you're dealing with today, don't forget that God is in control. There's nothing too hard for him. Somebody's dealing with a burden. Somebody's dealing with the pain. Somebody's dealing with the ailment. Somebody's dealing with an affliction. Somebody's dealing with just, feeling down, feeling sorrowful, feeling hurt, not feeling peace. Whatever you're facing, don't think that God can't get you through it. God can get you through and will get you through anything that you are dealing with, that you are facing, and that has come up against you, and that what you are going through, God will bless you and God will keep you through it. Yes, he will. God will keep you when things go haywire. God will keep you when things are tight. God will keep you when things are upsetting. God will keep you. There's nothing that God cannot do. We have to take the limitations off of our own belief, our own faith, our own convictions. Sometimes we pull ourselves down because we're not letting God lift us up. You got to let God lift you up. You got to say, I trust God in anything, any scenario. I believe that God is going to get me through it and give me the best outcome. You got to put that in the comments. Say, I trust God in everything. You got to say, I trust God in everything. I believe in God in everything. I follow God in everything. I trust in the Lord. Does that mean that I'm not going to hit a wall? No. Does that mean I'm not going to deal with some stuff? No. Does that mean that every day is going to be smooth? Every day is going to be perfect? Every day is going to be grand? That does not mean that. But at least I have God with me so that when things do happen, when things do go haywire, when things do feel unsettling, when things do feel toxic, when things do feel turbulent, I have somebody that will keep me stable. God will keep you stable in the midst of your tough time. But if there's nothing too hard for God, don't limit yourself. Don't you think that God can't do this? Don't you think that God can't do that? Don't you think that God is not able? Don't you think that God is restricted? Don't restrict yourself from following God and believing in God for the best. Is there anybody that can say, I want the best? You got to say, I want the best. I'm not going to settle for mediocre. I'm not going to settle for something that I think is going to bring me satisfaction, and then I'm going to try to replace letter. No. I want the best that God has for me. I want to grow. I want everything God has for me. You ought to say, I want the best. Am I right? You ought to say, I want the best. You ought to say, God, I desire the best. God, I desire better. I desire it. But I also have to trust God. I have to wait on God. And I have to believe in God and understand, realize, and know that God has greatness, great things for me. But sometimes he has to try me out and see where I am and where I am spiritually. Sometimes God has to test us to see where we are spiritually. Sometimes God has to test us to see, okay, what are you going to do and what are you going to believe when I tell you this? Do you really trust his word? Do you really believe in his word? You got to trust God in all things, not in all things. He knows what you need. He knows what's best, but you have to trust him in all things. It's like if you want to get a wrinkle out of a shirt, you got to get an iron. And when you get the iron, when you work that iron on that shirt, when you put some starch, when you have some heat, that wrinkle will get out. You know, if you want to put a crease in the sleeve or a crease on your pants, you know, you have to iron. You have to put in the work to iron. You have to get that starch. But when the heat is up and when you want it, then you work to get it. And once you put in the time, the effort, and once you work at it, then you'll be able to get it. That's the same way it is when we trust God, when we follow God. God will give us some stuff, but we have to put in some work. Just like we talked about last night, we got to put in work. It's in everything you do. You got to put in work. You can't just wait for things to come to you. Some things you got to go get. You can't just wait for some stuff to come to you. You got to go out there and go get it. You got to put in some time. You got to put your 2 feet to the plow. You can't just wait for everything to come to you. It doesn't work like that. Some stuff you have to go get. But it does not mean that God can't do it. But sometimes you have to put in work as well. God can do it, but we have to put in some work as well. We can't just depend just on him to do it, but what are you doing? What seeds are you planting? How far are you trying to go? What effort are you putting into it as well? I mean, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac came about, but they had to do something. Hello. And that's the same way it is with us as we follow the Lord. You got to put in some work. You ought to put that in the comments and say, put in some work, put in some time, put in some effort. Nothing is too hard for God. God is so good. God is so great. God is so powerful. God is so awesome. There's nothing God cannot do. God is not limited. We have to have faith in him and trust in him. God can get you over that hurdle. God can get you over that valley. God can get you over that valley, but you got to believe he'll do it. You got to know he'll do it. You got to trust that he'll do it. Do you trust in him completely and fully? Not just trusting him sporadically, but you got to trust in him completely. Every day is another day to trust God on a different level. Every day is another day to trust God to go further, to go higher, to maximize. But you got to trust him. But there's nothing too hard for God. But don't make things hard on yourself because you don't trust God. Don't make things hard on yourself by trying to do things that God has told you, that God never told you to do. Don't make things hard on yourself by trying to take God's job. Let God be God and you do what God says. And when you do what God says, you'll reap the benefits of that. You'll see the benefits of that because you trusted God fully and completely. So today, family, continue to trust God and know there's nothing too hard for God. Don't make life hard on yourself, but continue to trust God fully and completely. And when you do that, watch how God will do the rest. God bless you.